Hey, let's talk about the current state of the Pokemon TCG meta and the best decks right now prior to rotation. Ascended Heroes is finally here, and while it isn't making an extreme impact on the format, PokePad and END's Zekrom will shake up the top decks enough for there to be a bit of change. There aren't many events left until rotation, so let's send off the G block well. Number 1 is Gardevoir, and EX, and Jellicent. I'm not going to read off the whole deck list. You can find it at the article in the description. Gardevoir will reign supreme for as long as it's legal in Standard. This deck is just too flexible in its game plans and is able to deal with any matchup thrown at it. This deck has performed very well, but many players disagree on the best way to build it. The list above is Brent Tonnisson's from EUIC, but there are a ton of options, such as playing a more Arven-heavy engine with Technical Machine Evolution. Henry Chow popularized a version with Luxurious Cape previously in this format, and his testing group even submitted L-Gem over Lily's Clefairy at EUIC, showing that there might be some techs worth exploring. Gardevoir is one of the most flexible and powerful decks in Standard, and it'll likely continue to succeed until it finally rotates out. Number 2, we got Goldengo EX. Goldengo is much less flexible than Gardevoir, but it still stands as one of the strongest decks in the format. While it has no damage manipulation, it has a ton of consistency from Coin Bonus and Lunar Cycle. It can take a one-hit knockout on anything with Make It Rain and can play an entirely single prized board in matchups where prize racing is important. Solrock's Cosmic Beam lets you take prize cards as early as turn 1 without having to put liabilities onto your board. Goldengo is often seen as the gatekeeper of this format, with many decks having to dedicate a ton of spots to beating it. However, even against decks including Toedscruel or Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon, you have game plans, especially when you have Prime Catcher to get out of Yveltal's clutch. You can also have Lana's Aid against heavy item lock decks like Gardevoir Jellicent to assist with filling out your resources throughout the game. While this deck didn't gain anything from Ascended Heroes, it's still very solid and one of the best decks in the format. Number 3, we got Dragapult EX and Dusknoir, so nothing has changed really in the top 3. Still a great deck, actually gained PokePad from Ascended Heroes, which helps get slightly better setups. The strategy and overall list has not changed much from the last time. You can still use Budew early and then pivot into wiping the board with Cursed Blast and Phantom Dive. I only have 2 PokePads in the list because of how important it is to find Dragapult EX and Latias EX on the first turn. Also like to prioritize this to the point that we're including 2 copies of Dawn to assist in finding Latias EX and Fezandipiti EX, and don't have too many new things to say about the strategy, but would recommend looking for late game lines with Blood Moon or Saluna EX. Can win a lot of games where you have poor opening hands through a late game Blood Moon, and if you start thinking of it as a way to bridge between Phantom Dives without attaching energy at the end of the game, the deck comes a lot more flexible. Number 4, we've got END's Zoroark EX, which has climbed up. I think this might have been number 5, or maybe not even on the list last month. It gained the most from Ascended Heroes. The addition of END's Zekrom and the Rampaging Thunder attack gives it a more aggressive attacking option for Night Joker than it didn't have prior. You can use it in combination with Black Belt's Training or Binding Mochi to one-hit KO Mega Absol EX even. And if you have both, you can KO it even with a Bravery Charm. Overall strategy of this deck is to trade through your deck with the END's Zoroark itself, and then use a bunch of attacks from your different END's Pokemon. This particular list from Tord Reklev doesn't include END's Reshiram, which was formerly used for its powerful Rage attack to punish players for hitting into the Zoroark. Instead, it focuses on being aggressive with End's Zekrom, since many players will just assume that the End's Reshiram will always be there. End's Darmanitan and the Reversal Energy also give you the option to hit multiple Pokemon at once with Flame Body Cannon, and to attack the Darmanitan itself to KO, and to attack with the Darmanitan itself to KO a Goldengo EX. I've seen Liam Halliburton, the most accomplished End's Zoroark pilot, play this deck against Goldengo and frequently used Backdraft with the Darmanitan to pivot into a single prize board while still pressuring the Goldengos. Yeah, people have done that to me online. It's brutal. End's Zoroark is a very complex deck, but it gained a massive shot in the arm from the new set. I think End's Zoroark is going to be really good after the rotation. I think it's just going to keep getting better and better. And number 5, we've got another one coming up the ranks, Mega Absol and Mega Kangaskhan. Mega Absol was one of the strongest decks in the Phantasmal Flames format, winning the EUIC in the hands of Edwin Mesman. The deck has great matchups against Gardevoir EX and Dragapult EX, struggles a bit against Goldengo EX, which necessitated the inclusion of the Toedscruel line. This deck does get a lot worse in the Ascended Heroes format. End's Zoroark was already a pretty bad matchup. It'll be much more heavily played thanks to the introduction of End's Zekrom, introducing another problematic matchup for the deck that likely requires dedicated answers. However, Mega Absol EX stays on this list thanks to its options to outplay your opponent. It's very easy to make a mistake against a deck that can be aggressive, strip resources from your hand, pick up any Pokemon, and pivot into Retreat Lock. Number 6, we've got Charizard EX and Noctowl, which has dropped down a couple spots. Charizard and Noctowl is one of the closest things the PokemonTCG has ever had to a combo deck, in that you take long turns, but you win the game in very few turns. This deck usually attacks with Charizard EX or Terapagos EX, and can use a combination of Dusknoir and Briar to end the game quickly. This deck relies heavily on Dawn to set up your board, as it grabs your basic Terra Pokemon, the Noctowl, and any of your Stage 2s. You can frequently win the game in 3 turns, as you can set up for Briar Dusknoir turns to take 4 prize cards when your opponent has 2 prize cards remaining. This list I've chosen to showcase is from Jackson Ford at EUIC, which includes the Wellspring Mask Ogerpon EX to Sob and try to break item lock against Dragapult EX. Once you get used to playing this deck, you can get a lot of very fast wins with it. And number 7, another one fell back a little bit, Marnie's Grimmsnarl. Gained a ton from Pokepad's release, and also a little bonus from the new 70 HP Snorunt. This deck tries to use Frostlass to spread damage on both sides, and then throw that damage over to your board with Munkidori. Marnie's Grimmsnarl is here as an attacker that's very easy to set up through Spikemouth Gym, and it uses the same type of energy as Munkidori. Being able to directly search for Frostlass with Pokepad is very strong, as you want to set up 2 Frostlass in a ton of matchups. Having Pokepad also lets you use a more Budew-centric strategy, almost copying the Budew Frostlass deck that some players picked up in the past. You get to remove the Ultra Ball from your deck as well, since you really struggle with the cost of having to discard 2 cards without any onboard draw support. While Marnie's Grimmsnarl is typically seen as an inferior Dark deck to Mega Absol and End's Zoroark, I choose to include it here thanks to the extra consistency from Pokepad. And thank you for including it, Natalie, because it was included in last month's, I think it was number 4, number 5. So it's gotten a little bit worse comparatively, even though it's gotten better by itself due to Pokepad. It's just these other matchups, Mega Absol and End's Zoroark, just got even better. Dragapult, Goldengo's just too good, and Gardevoir's just too good. So that's what I got. Much thanks to Natalie Miller for the article. Hope you enjoyed Have a great day.